Okay, thank you everybody. Thank you for speakers for joining and on all the attendees. And I do a very short welcome, as today we have many ALICE members, but many non-members. So then we wanted to provide a little bit of framework of this webinar that we are running on behalf of ALICE. ALICE is about innovation, people, and knowledge. And within our network, we are a non-for-profit organization based in Brussels. We have European leading companies and experts in implementing logistics and supply chain innovation. And we have here today the case of 4 companies that are part of ALICE that are leading in the innovation implementation. What we do together in ALICE in these networks to develop new concepts, influence the industry, but also the European Commission, governments, to share and facilitate knowledge across the network and enable collaboration opportunities, as we will hear today from 2 of the ALICE members that found themselves in ALICE and created a very concrete collaboration with our mission to accelerate the decarbonization in an affordable way. Here you have all the members of ALICE. We are 160 members coming from different angles in the freight transportation, logistics, and supply chains, which gives us a very rich and holistic way of addressing problems, and very easy to find partners to collaborate in this type of projects. I will not go into the details of this slide, but defines the vision, mission, and our strategy, the different roadmaps, mainly the roadmap on decarbonization, and the roadmap physical internet, and a recent presented guide on driving zero-emission city logistics. And we have 5 different thematic groups, and this webinar is part of one of these ones that is focused on the efficient and low emissions assets and energy. Alessia will give a presentation at the beginning on Codognato, going a little bit beyond the scope on how they see the decarbonization, and going to other areas like modal shift that we are also addressing in different groups. Here you have a full overview of the different themes we have. We have thematic groups in the top of the slide, and then we have horizontal areas of work, and then we have projects. And here today, here you have a very busy slide with all the programs we have as part of these independent programs for these and activity fields for 2022. And actually, this webinar belongs to the efficient low emissions assets and energy, and the program that is on the leadership of John, that is chairing the session today on vehicle availability and low emissions assets availability. Also belongs to, or it's facilitated by the Enable one-to-one connections we do in ALICE program. We will have also the presentation from Paola Chiarini from the European Commission, with whom we have a very regular exchange, and with all the DigiMove and the research in terms of supporting and assisting in the definition of the EU strategies and providing our input and feedback. And of course, we have the part on knowledge sharing and management. We do many activities inside ALICE, but we do some of them as this one outside. So then I just stop here, because I think most important is that we move through the webinar. And what we share in ALICE, all of us share, even the biggest companies you have seen in the slide, is that we need to move forward together, and we need to collaborate to reach this ambition target to achieve zero-emission logistics and to avoid climate change. So here you have also, you will get them, and you know that different means to reach ALICE, but of course we are really welcoming you to collaborate with us in this venture. And now I'm getting it back to you, John.
So, Fernando, thanks very much. And just before I call on Paola to lead us on the next presentation, just to let everybody know that the presenters have about somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes to present. I will give them the dong at 12.5 minutes to tell them to hurry up and to move along. And there'll be about 5 minutes for a very quick question and answer session on this. So if you have any questions, you could leave them to the end. That would be great. So Paolo, can you please present and take us through DG Move? Thank you.
Thank you, John. I'm forced to ask whether you can hear and see me because I have a lot of connection problems today. Yes?
We can hear you and see you.
We can see you and hear you.
Thank you, and thanks for sharing my presentation. Okay, thank you very much. Well, as John said, I come from the Innovation and Research Unit of DG Mobility and Transport, and what I would like to do today is really to give you a very brief overview of some of the European Commission's policy initiatives that will bring towards an irreversible shift to zero-emission mobility. Next slide, please. So as you might know, the European Green Deal, which is one of the 6 key priorities of the European Commission, calls for a reduction of 90% of greenhouse gas emissions from transport by 2050, with an intermediate target of a reduction of at least 55% compared to the 1990 levels by 2030. To, let's say, underpin this global objective, the DG Mobility Move published a sustainable and smart mobility strategy, and with different pillars. The pillar on sustainability, which calls indeed for an irreversible shift to zero-emission mobility, by making all transport modes more sustainable, by making available alternatives in a multimodal transport system, and also providing incentives towards this transition. Next, please. And here there are, as a result of this vision, there are several policies and several actions which are very intertwined, connecting to each other, and that I will touch upon today. The first is the new urban mobility framework, because one of the flagship of the strategy is really to have interurban and urban mobility, which are more sustainable and healthy. And then 3 other policies that actually support the flagship on the objective of boosting the uptake of zero-emission vehicles and the uptake of renewable and low-carbon fuels with the related infrastructure. So I will start from the first one, the new urban mobility framework. Next, please. As I said, there is in December we published a new urban mobility framework which set a vision and specific actions for a more accessible, inclusive, smart, resilient, but also zero-emission urban mobility in the European Union. Among the various areas, logistics, zero-emission city freight logistics and last-mile delivery has a very important role. And the idea here is that, of course, city logistics is very important, is essential for the good functioning of a city, but at the same time creates has negative effects. The e-commerce and last-mile delivery are a clear issue that is growing from the mobility point of view. There are also other needs, like a better collaboration among all the stakeholders that are involved in the city mobility, to have a better role of cities, a better integration of cities as nodes in the trans-European transport network, and also to have a better uptake and so support the adoption of zero-emission vehicles and zero-emission solutions, like, for instance, cargo bikes or new distribution models, all underpinned by good data management and sharing. So the Commission, to support these objectives, the Commission will make a proposal by the end of 2022 to revise the CO2 emission performance standards for heavy-duty vehicles. It will also ensure that logistic planning is very well integrated within the overall urban logistics planning in the SUMPs, so these sustainable urban mobility plans. Will support the dialogue and collaboration among all actors within the cities, so local authorities, stakeholders, and also the exchange of best practice. And it will support also voluntary data sharing. All this to reach as soon as possible zero emissions. I wanted to mention here simply also that there is an activity, the climate neutral cities mission, which is an activity research that will support 100 cities to become climate neutral by 2030. Next, please. As I mentioned, cities have to be well integrated in the Trans-European Transport Network. This is really the network, the program that aims to build an effective and multimodal transport network across the EU. This regulation has been in place for many years, but in 2021 and December 2021, the revision was adopted. I will not go through all the key elements of the revision, but I will focus on 3 elements. The idea is that the TEN-T, the Trans-European Network, the infrastructure, need to be fit for the future. And with all the new technological development, with the new objectives, with the new requirement, it was absolutely necessary to make certain that this new regulation really aligns with this new situation. And it focuses in an increasing way on multimodality and interoperability, and as I said, on the integration on urban nodes. So the cities, the 424 cities that are identified as urban nodes. And the regulation to support this, reaching the Green Deal objective, requires that by 2040, at least one multimodal passenger hub and one multimodal freight terminal with sufficient transshipment capacity is available in every city or around the vicinity of the urban node. It also requires the urban nodes to develop and implement a sustainable urban mobility plan. And this plan will include the measures to integrate the different modes of transport within the city, but the objective is really to promote zero-emission mobility. The third element I would like to highlight among all the key elements is the fact that the regulation will support the deployment of charging and refueling infrastructure, which is needed for the alternative transport fuels, so for this regulation. And the TEN-T provides the geographical scope for the deployment of these alternative transport fuels network. Next, please. And indeed, we know that in 2014 already, the Commission adopted an alternative fuel infrastructure directive that required member states to develop national policy frameworks. However, it was considered that it was necessary to go a step further and to change the legal instrument underpinning these requirements from a directive to a regulation. Without entering into the legal details, the idea is really that a regulation will have to support, as an instrument, will support better a much more swift, fast, and coherent development of such an infrastructure network across the European Union. And the idea of this network and this regulation is really that is necessary, is absolutely it is expected that the number of zero-emission vehicles will increase in the next years by 2030 in quite a consistent way, and that in addition, the adoption of these new zero-emission vehicles will have to be supported. And to support it is also necessary that the infrastructure, refueling and recharging infrastructure, is deployed quickly and is deployed also in a very harmonized way, so to ensure interoperability and ensure user-friendly infrastructure. And it is for this reason that the AFIR, so Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Regulation, was adopted. last year, was adopted last year, and it defines mandatory targets for road transport, but also let's keep in mind for waterborne, especially power output at ports and for aviation. So again, power output at airports, and includes technical specification, but includes also other more users related aspects, like for instance, price transparency, modalities for payment, and also monitoring of the progress of member states in the deployment of such an infrastructure. I will not go through the mandatory targets for road for sake of time, but next one, please, next slide. I added some, as an example, some of the targets for electric recharging infrastructure for both for cars and vans and for heavy-duty vehicles and for hydrogen, just to give an idea of what these targets are. And what is interesting is that these targets relate both to power output and to the distance between the different charging stations, recharging points. So, and these are really the targets that member states will have to meet. Next, please. The Connecting Europe Facility program, which is the financial instrument supporting the development of the TEN-T, will also support the deployment with 1.5 billion euros, will support the deployment of this alternative fuel infrastructure. And this will be done through a 3-year rolling call exactly for this alternative fuels infrastructure facility. This instrument is very complicated, and I mean, colleagues will be glad to explain if this is of interest to anybody. But just for your information, next slide, please. I added the table with the deadlines for the call in case you are interested. And as a last point, next slide, please. I mentioned from the beginning that both the strategy, the Sustainable and Smart Mobility Strategy, the Urban Mobility Framework, and other documents refer to the need for a revision of CO2 emission performance standards for new heavy-duty vehicles, And this is considered an important key policy to try and reduce the impact of road transport. The point is that the heavy-duty vehicles account currently for a fifth of the CO2 emissions from road transport. But what is worrying is that the trend is increasing, mainly due to the growth of all the overall road freight transport. A regulation that was adopted in 2019 already sets some CO2 emission standards for certain heavy-duty vehicles, starting from 2025 and then 2030, and this is a key piece of policy. But it covers only in certain categories of heavy-duty vehicles, while other types of vehicles are not included in this in their scope. So currently there is a review on the effectiveness of the regulation, and this review will be concluded, is planned to be concluded by the end of this year, 2022. Next slide, please. And this review, as I said, is ongoing, but it's already clear what you will cover because it's set in the 2019 regulation. You will cover the scope and targets in the sense that you will review
Paola,
yes?
sorry, just to let you know you're at 12.5 minutes, so
is my last slide, but thank you very much for the reminder.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. And the review will cover the possibly revision of the 2030 targets and possibly targets for 2035, 2040. It will cover also, it will consider incentive mechanisms for the adoption of zero-emission vehicle. Oh, sorry, I forgot. In terms of scope, it will consider whether to include under these emission performance standards also different types of heavy-duty vehicles, including buses, coaches, trailers, different kind of vehicles. It will consider what it could be the role played by synthetic and advanced alternative fuels produced with renewable energies, and will consider also other elements like governance. In addition, by 2023, the Commission will evaluate the possibility of developing a common methodology to assess and report on the full life cycle of CO2 emissions of heavy-duty vehicles. All this, as I said, is under discussion. There are no decisions yet, but you can definitely contribute to this discussion through the public consultation, which is open until the 14th of March, and you are strongly invited to provide feedback to the consultation. I hope I didn't stun you with too much information all in once, and I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Paola, for your presentation. I think there's one question, which is, what incentives are nowadays available for the intermodal in Europe? Which rail connections are carbon neutral, or do we have any?
Okay, that is a very specific question. What incentives are now available for intermodal in Europe? What my understanding is that there have been a number of funding, for instance, to develop intermodal facilities, transshipment facility already in previous call of the Connected Europe facility. So there have been some calls. And I mean, I speak, of course, from my directorate point of view. We had also some calls, and we will have some calls to develop more the operational side, so of the intermodality, how to develop intermodal solutions in Europe. I would say so. There are certain possibility. I don't know whether by incentives here is intended as a real support to certain type of activities. I'm not aware of this right now. I am not sure about which rail connections are carbon neutral. I'm not aware of this, but I'm not a specialist on rail, and I am willing to send these questions to our colleagues that work for the Europe's Rail Joint Undertaking.
Well, thanks very much. Thank you. Alicia, would you like to start your presentation, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will just share my screen now. Can you see it? Do you see the?
Yeah.
You see my screen?
Yes,
okay, that's great. So thank you very much.
Yes, we can, yes, thank you.
Thank you. So hello everyone, I'm Alessia Podolino, Innovation and Digital Transformation Specialist at Codognotto. Thank you again, Fernando, and also all the ALICE members and the other people, stakeholders who joined today's meeting. Today we will talk about our strategy towards freight decarbonization, and we will present the new collaboration with DEBA. So for those who do not know us, we are an international company. We are a leader in transport and logistics. Codognotto was founded in Salgareda, close to Venice, in Italy, in 1946. And we own today around 2,000 loading units. We have 200,000 square meters in terms of warehouses. We have branch offices almost around all Europe, but also like in UK, in the Emirates, India, Singapore, with an overall turnover of 300 million euros. What we are doing, we start from services classics such as full truckload, but to proceed with groupage, sea freight, air freight, intermodality, and also logistic warehousing and costume services. Today we are here to discuss and provide you with more information from, let's say, a transport and logistic company perspective, of course, in terms of sustainability and innovation, which are, let's say, key elements on our daily work. Today we can affirm that we rely on sustainable logistics. Thanks to, I mean, in order to reduce our carbon footprint. To do so, at group level, already since many years, we develop both short and long-term strategies to, let's say, make a concrete change. But how, I mean, how we think to achieve our goals? Three main ways. The first will be, I mean, is today actually the transition to multimodal transport. Then we have the second, that is through digitalization and process optimization. And then we have the third one, last but not least, the adoption of alternative fuel solutions. A key elements, I mean, will be how also to implement these three main points. Of course, there is the need of supply chain analysis, the adoption of the principle and techniques of the lean production, but also investments. And I will spend one word more on investment, because it's not just about the logistic company, but when we talk about investment, we have to, of course, see the whole pictures, which involves also producer, because we could not have an alternative fuel truck if there is no truck in the market, and we cannot drive the truck if we don't have an infrastructure. And for this, we need, of course, also the support from the national, I mean, the states, but also at the European level. So if we go a little bit more deeper into the three topics I just mentioned, we have the shift to multimodal transport, and why? Because the road, I mean, then the shift, the change from road to rail and short sea reduce not only the CO2 emission, but also we can think about traffic and accident. In the recent years, Codognotto established different connections, both rail and short sea, that are focused, as you can see here in the list, not only, let's say, in the European territories, but also abroad, such as to or from United Kingdom and also Russia. The second point that I mentioned was digitalization. Today, we all know that there is this huge need of the implementation of new technologies. We have leveraged data to modernize the supply chain, which also improve visibility, predictive information, and also automatization through connected workflow. All these technologies that we are talking about, let's say in daily life, they apply to incoming, outgoing goods, but also warehouses, and they are used for process monitoring. For example, in all our, let's say, units, we have installed IoT devices to take track of the loads, of the goods, of the vehicles, and so on. Going a little bit more deeper into this topic, we can say that today, when we discuss digitalization in the context of transport and logistics, we are talking about smart logistics 4.0. So a shared logistic that, let's say, where the transport of goods take place in a more efficient, reliable, and sustainable way. How? Of course, sharing data, information, also events such as delay, accidents, but also might be weather condition, and so on. And in this context, for example, as Codognotto, we developed an app, the Codognotto app, which support the tracking and also implementation of all this information. The app was born, first of all, let's say, internally for our drivers, but might be also used in future, or better, interface in future with railway operators, terminal, ports, warehouses, and so on. We are very active in this, let's say, in this field. For example, at European level, we join different European projects focused on digitalization and the concept of synchromodality, which might be, for example, the Horizon Project Logistar. But also we tested within the C-Roads project the platooning technology, and we are active part also federated Phoenix European project. For example, within the Phoenix project, we will test with our pilot case in the next weeks, also the CMR. Last but not least, we have the alternative fuels. As I mentioned, we are also focused, of course, on the clean transport. Our truck are, let's say, the basic element with which we started the business back in 1946. And but today the fleet meets let's say the latest environmental and safety standards, but we are always let's say keeping an eye on the market and on new opportunity to improve. In Italy, our fleet is totally and completely LNG, and is already being fueled with bio-LNG since last year in 2021. Of course, the solution still, let's say, a great solution when we are talking about sustainable transport, but we need also to look forward and how we are focused now on electric vehicles. The market is really moving in this direction, and we want to be, of course, part of the process and the change. And in the near future, why not? We are thinking also to develop new projects which will see, let's say, the implementation of green hydrogen. In this case, also here in the slide, I mentioned also blue hydrogen, because it might be there will be actually a transition. This is our personal opinion at the moment, considering the experience that we had with the LNG, that we had first to implement the LNG to then arrive a few years later to bio-LNG, also because of the availability on the market and on the infrastructure. Since we mentioned the electric vehicles with Codognotto Austria, we are partners of the European project Smart, that is focused on e-mobility smart grid for passengers and last mile freight transport in the alpine space. This for us is really, let's say, a great project in this topic, because we are kind of the bridge between the clients and the market, and so on, also the suppliers. And we conduct also this, let's say, interview to see the different perspective and also direction, opinion, and so on in this field, supporting the development also of toolkit, but also the definition of different roadmap that the project will define. In this context, so since we were already active, but not in practice in the electric field, we were looking forward to find a partner with whom collaborate. And actually, in here in ALICE, we met Teva, this British producer, which today we'll talk later, Phil, Henrik, and we signed recently this new collaboration to test e-mobility on the road. We are talking about battery electric and hydrogen range extending battery technology trucks. At the moment, what we have done, we have installed in our trucks some devices to track different information, such as the distance traveled per day, the fuel that we used, the shift duration, the speed, and so on. And this will enable Teva to create a set of, let's say, benchmark requirements that will inform the development of a sort of what we called Teva also Codognotto duty cycle. And then based on this data, Teva will create prototypes and production vehicles which will match this duty cycle of current Codognotto trucks on the road. More details will provide by Phil shortly. And thank you very much. And this was our presentation.
Alessandra, thank you for your excellent presentation. Very interesting. So we'll be delighted to hear the second half with Phil later on. That'd be perfect. And if there's any questions, has anybody any questions for her? Okay, so thanks very much. Thank you. And I call on Phil Phil Hendrick, to after sales and after sales director at Teva, to do the presentation.
Thank you. Give me 2 seconds. Let me put that up. Hopefully you can all see that. I'll assume that's a yes.
Yep, we can just see it just fine. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for attending the webinar. And thanks, Alessia, for your kind words. Really to kick off, I think everyone who's on this webinar, we've all got the same objective. We all want to deliver zero emission freight. And clearly, you know, Teva's not going to do that on its own. Codognotto isn't going to do it on its own. Alice is going to have huge input to do it, but really collaboration is the key. So firstly, I'd like to thank Codognotto for engaging with us and agreeing to do this exciting trial. But also I'd like to thank Alice for bringing us together and for being such a positive promoter of what Teva is trying to achieve with its zero emission trucks. So thank you very much to both parties for that. In terms of Teva, so our mission is pretty simple. You know, we do technology because it matters and makes a difference to humanity. You know, we are trying to achieve, with collaborations with various parties, whether it be end users like Codognotto or whether it be with energy companies to ensure a smooth transition to the use of green hydrogen and green electricity. This is what drives us. We want to make a difference, and I'm sure everybody in the room does as well. In terms of our vision, we see ourselves as global innovators, acknowledged for moving the world towards a better way of transporting everything for everyone. So who are we? So we were founded by Maria and Asher Bennett in 2013, and we have not long opened a new production facility to the east of London. I'll talk about that a little bit later. We design and manufacture medium to heavy duty trucks, so we're talking about 7.5 ton all the way through to 19 ton. So we're looking at freight trucks for the urban distribution market. We have had our first generation vehicles, which were produced in 2016, which were a battery electric truck with a diesel range extender, which obviously we've since left behind. They've been on the road for the last five and a bit years, but that has enabled us to clock up lots and lots of experience and learnings. As you can see from the slide, those trucks have done over 400,000 kilometers working in the UK. So from that, we've had lots of learnings about battery technology for trucks, enabling us then to leave the diesel range extender behind and to offer a true zero emission proposition to customers. And we think the range extension technology that we have is a key differentiator. We will also offer a battery electric 7.5 ton truck purely for urban deliveries, but we also know that most fleets need a greater range, and the use of a small hydrogen fuel cell will enable the vehicle to use all of the cheap electricity in that battery charge every day, with an eye obviously on a reduced total cost of ownership. And indeed, on the hydrogen range extender, we believe that this can deliver a fully zero emission solution to cities implementing the zero emission freight zones by 2025. And our real focus is to be able to deliver to end users zero emission trucks that can do everything an internal combustion engine truck can do. So we're rapidly scaling up. We launched our first truck into Europe in September 2022, and that is obviously characterized by the new partnerships that we're talking about today, and also expansion into new geographies. So we will look certainly at one, if not two, additional factories within the EU, as well as plans to move to the US. Our key strategic principles. Now, we recognize that we all want to move to zero emission trucks and the environment is very much at the forefront, but we also recognize that there is a limit to an increase in total cost for fleets. So we've only sort of targeted capital expenditure where the market requirements. We have a very low cost flexible manufacturing module. You'll see when I show you photos of the factory. That factory is our standard. It can be picked up and put into another region. Low automation, because the sort of volumes we're looking at, there is no point in investing capital expenditure into huge robotic programs. So we are there focused not only on a zero emission truck, but also on the total cost of ownership for the end user. We have that flexibility to respond to market requirements quickly. The dual fuel approach allows us to flex either fuel should the market require. So if we have a leap forward in energy density in batteries, we can probably scale back on the amount of hydrogen that the truck carries, and vice versa. If we see an expansion in a hydrogen network and the price of green hydrogen per kilo falling, we can, for example, put another container of hydrogen onto the truck. Obviously, ESG principled, you'll see in some of the technology. So this is not only about producing zero emission trucks, it's all about the materials we use within those trucks as well. But also absolutely key for fleets is to have built-in quality. Again, coming back to that point that you need trucks that can do everything an internal combustion engine truck can do. In terms of hydrogen, obviously, I think the real conundrum with hydrogen, it's fantastic. We can, with green hydrogen and green electricity, we deliver a true zero emission truck, but we will obviously have that question of where do I get my hydrogen from? And until there is a development of a network across Europe and across the US, our solution really is to work with energy companies. We have a couple of partnerships in place already with energy companies, which will be able to deliver green hydrogen directly to the depot, and can be scaled up from a very, very small sort of start of delivering a container right the way through to the installation of an electrolyzer at the customer's depot. What we almost must bear in mind is that the hydrogen fuel cell is a range extender. It never turns the wheels. So we do not run the hydrogen fuel cell at anything other than a steady state. So if a truck is climbing a hill, we're not putting the fuel cell under pressure at all. It is merely there to recharge the battery. And that's where the cheap grid electricity can be used to deliver a lower total cost of ownership. So we lead on technology, mass market zero emission electric trucks and related technologies. Again, 7.5 ton to 19 ton, 7.5 ton in both BEV and the range extended BEV, a 12 ton and 19 ton in the range extended BEV. We've developed our own software, batteries, BMS, fuel cell integration, drive motors, and we already have significant experience of our trucks, battery electric trucks operating on the roads in the UK. So again, just to summarize the proposal, we have a 7.5 ton pure electric solution with a range of up to 200 kilometers, so ideal for urban deliveries, but recognizing that most fleets need additional range, additional autonomy, and that is where we use a small hydrogen fuel cell to act as a backup generator for the battery, and we can achieve an autonomy, a range of around about 450 kilometers. Looking at the market, as you can see, everything to the left of the orange dotted line, we believe can be serviced by a pure battery electric vehicle. Although as the range increases during the day, depending on weather, depending on traffic, it may mean that an operator needs to rapidly charge. And as you can see, the bulk of the market sits to the right of that dotted orange line, showing that it's only serviceable really by having a range extender to obviously back up that battery there and increase the range to something that is actually required by fleets in the market. This is our factory at London Gateway, so to the east of London. The plan is to manufacture 3,000 units per annum there. Initially for the EU, our trucks will leave from that facility, but obviously we are already in significantly advanced talks with one site in Europe to open our first factory within the EU. So very quickly, the product range, as I said before, the 7.5 ton pure electric, a range of up to about 200 kilometers, a payload around 2.6 tons, but by launch we expect that to be increased. We launched this into Europe and the UK in September of this year, and we will have the first pre-production prototypes available for testing in June of this year. 6 months after that launch, so in March 2023, we launched the 7.5 ton electric truck with the hydrogen fuel cell range extender, increasing the range to 450 kilometers, again with a payload around 2.6 tons, but expected to be closer to 2.9 tons, and first tests for fleets available from October 2022. In September 2023, we will launch the 12 ton with the range extender, again a range of up to 450 kilometers with a payload of around 6.5 ton, and testing vehicles will be available from June of next year. And then finally, in March 2024, we will launch the 19 ton with the hydrogen fuel cell range extender, again a range of up to 450 kilometers, a payload of around 10.5 tons, and we'll have prototypes available for testing in October next year. Thank you very much. I know I've whizzed that through. I've maybe saved us some time. If there's any questions, then please feel free to raise your hand.
Would anybody like to ask Phil or Alicia any questions there in relation to the innovation either of their presentations?
So Eric from Unilever, thanks for your question. Do you want me to take that, John? Or do you want to?
Yep, yes, please, yeah.
Yeah, it should be. It is on the website now. When this is published, obviously my email address is on the end of that presentation. So if you can't find what you need, just drop me an email and I'll make sure I get the correct information over to you.
I think there was another question from Bernard before, if Codognoto was operating dedicated block trains, or if they were using existing connections and collaborating with railway operators. Alessia.
Yes, I'm checking the question. Could you please repeat? I didn't get it. So if we collaborate with the rail,
the question is, do you operate dedicated block trains, or do you use existing connections run by railway operators?
Well, certainly we operate. With the railway operators on routes that are already defined, and then there is a sort of flexibility depending on the rail operators also. In some cases, we also have Codognoto train, but we are not the train. We don't own the infrastructure. I don't know if I will check in any case the question in the chat and see whether I can answer in a better way.
Thanks very much. Thank you. There is a further question to Phil. What are the key challenges facing design, manufacturing of battery and fuel cell electric trucks?
I think, it's unfortunate, obviously, I think because of the technology. I did have a video to show, which would have shown our range extender, our hydrogen fuel cell range extended trucks around the track. I think that has been a challenge in terms of choosing the correct fuel cell supplier, because it's almost as if when you go to make a decision, someone else comes it's moving so quickly, the market, that someone else comes with another improvement, and you look at that, and someone else comes with another improvement. This technology is moving so quickly. We've settled on a supplier for now, but I think there are countless improvements being made on a daily basis in battery cell technology, and particularly fuel cell as well, that I think it will evolve over time. We certainly will be always looking to provide that greater efficiency for customers, but I think that has probably been the biggest challenge, I suppose, is moving away from tried and tested diesel technology as a range extender to hydrogen fuel cell to marry that with a battery. And hence, if you look at our the number of engineers we have, the number of traditional engineers now is very much outnumbered by the number of software engineers we have. This is fairly complicated and groundbreaking technology that we're bringing to market.
Okay, and if again if anybody wants to touch base with you, it's follow through on the bottom of your presentation or directly with you, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely, not a problem. We'd be more than happy.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And thanks, Alicia. Thanks very much. Thank you. I'm up next, so that'll be perfect. Thank you. My name is John Smith. I'm Head of Sustainable Infrastructure and Facility Management at Unpost. And today I'm just going to talk to you about our journey, our fleet electrification journey. We've proceeded in the last 2 years to have about 25 to 30% of our fleet is now with sustainable transport. Maybe next slide, please. Unpost is the Irish for the post, which is the mail or the mail provider for Ireland. We would be the equivalent of Deutsche Post in Germany or La Poste in France. We provide deliver mail throughout the 26 counties that would be the Republic of Ireland. So just as some of our juicy facts would be, we delivered 2.2 million addresses are served every working day by our postal operatives. We've also run a retail network where 1.7 million post office customers are served every week. We're one of Ireland's largest employers with over 9,000 employees. And we have 4 mail centres and over 100 delivery depots based around the country. So we're very local. We're in every large town and city in the country. And we've 900 post offices throughout the country. Next slide, please. So on Post, we've made a commitment to net zero by 2030, with the stepping stone of being 50% reduction by 2025. So it's quite a challenging commitment for us to go out there and deliver. We've achieved, in part of that step, we've achieved emission-free deliveries to all the Irish cities by the end of 2021. So anybody that knows a little bit about Ireland, obviously Dublin is our capital, but we have 5 other cities based throughout the country of various sizes. So those cities are Kilkenny, Waterford, Cork, Limerick and Galway, with population sizes of between about 30 to Cork, which would be the largest, about 300,000 people. So it's quite an achievement for us. We're the first postal organisation to have done it in terms of the whole country, and we're very proud of that achievement, having achieved it last year. If you want to read more about our sustainability and the commitments we've made and the progress, it's in our annual sustainability report. The link is if you click on sustainability report, it'll bring it directly to you. And we're in the process of completing this year's annual sustainability report for issue in April, May of this year. Next slide, please. So our path to net zero, we take our dates for net zero is based on our emissions in 2009, and that's due to legislation. We took the base year as 2029, which was a legislation to derive what is your base year and how you would achieve those reductions from them. And we've increased. There was a slight increase in terms of our emissions in 2020 and 2021 due to COVID, due to the contingency factors that we put in for COVID. So our rules and regulations for COVID was we kept the business fully operational as we were a key infrastructural business to the country. So most of our staff had to attend to their workplace, and to keep our staff safe, etc., we implemented policies around greater ventilation. So obviously greater ventilation means that you keep the heating on, open the windows and keep the heating on. So we would have lost some traction in our CO2 reduction due to that. And in addition, as part of our smaller fleet, where people would have shared vehicles or shared the vans, and that would be a guy going out, one of the postal operatives going out maybe in the morning and another one in the evening, we separated those. We extended our fleet to allow for single usage by staff member, to give staff confidence that they wouldn't catch COVID from sharing facilities or usage. So our commitment to net zero, we've done the calculations, and we're confident, while the challenge is strong, we're confident that we can achieve it, and we're quite confident that we can achieve 2025 as we feel with our with everything else, if we went back to pre-COVID, we'd be about 40% of the way with 10% to achieve over the next 2 to 3 years. So we're quite confident that we can get to that stage. Next slide, please. Just to give maybe more, our fleet, part of our initiative is also we look at good management practices, and we have achieved 50,001. So again, we're very proud of this achievement, where 50,001 covers the entire buildings and fleet. It covers the whole company, and it's an energy management ISO, and it's part of our good management approach to try and achieve reductions through which will be our standard fleet, diesel fleet, as well as through to supporting the introduction of sustainable vehicles. We've one of the largest fleets. We've about 4,000 vehicles, just over 1,000 electric vehicles, and 150 trikes. In terms of our deliveries to the city, we've upgraded the bicycle routes to trike routes, and we would have 140 e-trikes out there in the business. We've also Ireland's first 7.5 ton electric truck, Mitsubishi Fuso. So yeah, we're very happy with that. And we've Ireland's largest private charging network in Ireland. We've over 1,300 chargers. We would feel it is the largest charging network within the island of Ireland. So seeing as that we had 11 2 years ago, it's superb achievement for the guys who were responsible for getting those chargers out there and operational. We've one of the largest electric fleets in Europe, and we're the first postal service provider to achieve zero carbon emissions, as I said, in the capital city and across all the cities in the country. And that's the 6 cities that I detailed before. So next slide, please. So the challenges for us in terms of what are we going to do next and how are we going to move that along? So if you just roll it there. So the first one is around infrastructure, physical and electrical. In terms of rolling out fleet to into small areas, it's quite a challenge. First of all, our business was built for a different business model. As we move more into being a logistics company, our business was built about mail delivery into the cities, into towns and city centres, with the post office set up for more about walking routes and walking into those areas. So that's a huge challenge that we've to look at maximising or extending the car parking areas that we're going to provide for the charging the vehicles, and also the electrical infrastructure. So anybody that would have worked on energy saving 10, 15 years ago was all about cutting your electrical infrastructure, minimising it, making sure it was nice and tight, taking out the over-engineering. So that was all done, and now we're putting some resources back into effect. So the other one is costs and availability. The vehicles, it's quite challenging to get the vehicles. We've supply chain issues in terms of ordering those vehicles and getting them in place for this year. Microchips and timelines in terms of production facilities have been offered as challenges on this year's order, and then also costs. So the typical cost in Ireland of electric vehicle, or list price of electric vehicle, is around, in terms of the van, the Renault Kangoo size for electric vehicle would be about 32,000 euros, versus the diesel equivalent, which would be around 16,000 euros. So there's quite an infrastructural cost, and then the cost of install is about 5,000 per charger. So you can get a feel for the cost and availability of those chargers and the commitment, the costs or the capital commitment that's involved. Just next point there, sorry. So the next one is about the management of the charging network. Phil from Teva spoke about the cheap electricity. Well, cheap electricity is in Ireland is nitrate electricity, which is between the hours of 11 and 7 in the winter, and it was 12 and 7 in the winter, and 11. Sorry, you just get mixed up, but it's nitrate electricity. So what we try to do is maximise that nitrate charging opportunity. The cost per unit of electricity is a lot cheaper at night. It's about half the day rate. So we would be trying to maximise that charging point at night, so that we can get maximise that charging at night rate. And also in terms of our contracts with our electrical suppliers. By having a huge demand, night rate demand, we should be able to get cheaper overall electricity costs to the company. So it is quite a challenge. That's part of the challenge that we will be doing. Next slide, please. Our next point, sorry. So the other one is the range capability. Range capability in the postal sector has been a challenge from the manufacturers. So the manufacturers will be typically saying would have a typical range much greater than what we would be visualizing, and part of that has to be due to the way our business runs, and that our vans will be doing up to 35, 40 drops per day. So the range has been a challenge to us, and in terms of some of the vehicles, it's about half the range that would be advertised. So it has been a challenge, and it is a limiting factor on where we can put the vans, and it has reduced their overall rollout. So it is a huge challenge to us. The next point is around training. Under our ISO policies, we've offered training to our staff. We would feel that good training practices saved us about 5%, somewhere between 5 and 10% in terms of overall fuel costs. So by operating training across the board, in both diesel and electric vehicles is a substantial saving in terms of the project. But also when we issue an electric vehicle to any staff member, or any staff members takes up driving an electric vehicle, they get a full training program about the electric vehicle, so they get fully assessed, and it helps them come on board. Next slide, please. So just to, the opportunities that are out there, we would feel that there's greater opportunity. So we're looking at how we can help the circular economy, which is kind of which is another extent. We're hoping to allow or enable purchases of the employees purchase the EVs at the end of the lease or the end of life and on post. So as the building, our vehicles are somewhere, we would capitalise them over 4 to 5 years, and after that then they would be sold on and into the market, and we're hoping to open the opportunity for employees to be able to buy those, and obviously then expand the rollout of electric vehicles in the country. We're operating then opening that charging network to our employees. Currently we don't have it open, feeling that why would you offer free electricity to people in that, but we do want to offer it to our employees, so we're looking at that possibility. Home garaging is to extend the infrastructure of restricted parking, that we would allow people to bring the vehicles home and then charge them at home and use them for work purposes. So we feel that will accommodate greater usage of electric vehicles, and also the further expansion of the fleet into electricity. And public access to charging. As we've the largest charging network in the country, we're looking at how we can open that charging network to allow public access to charging. So next slide. So the next steps. The next steps for us is to continue the electrification of the fleet. To investigate zero and low emissions HDVs. So the presentation by Phil is very interesting to us, and how Teva have overcome that. But yes, we're looking at that as well. How do we maximize that? We've also integrated in September of this year, we commenced a trial on hydro-treated vegetable oil fuel, HVO, and we retrofitted an existing 45,000 litre tank in Galway and upgraded the diesel pump. And since September, we've 120,000 litres of kilometres travelled using that oil, and we're finding that has been very exciting. It's a 1-for-1 equivalent with about 90% reduction in the carbon usage. So we feel that we've identified kind of the stepping stone until that decision around which type of fuel is going to be the day fuel or electricity, hydrogen, etc. So we're very excited about this interim step, and we're rolling it out to Cork and Waterford, 2 further cities this year, Q1, and then we will have a look at what it's doing and where we will bring that. So the next slide, please. So just to say thanks for everybody for listening to us. Our journey has been an exciting journey in Unpost. 3 years ago, we started with a very small fleet of about 11 electric vehicles, and today we have over 1,000. and we've been very excited about the opportunity of demonstrating Unpost as a sustainable company. So if anybody has any questions they would like to ask. Okay, so thanks everybody, thank you for that. And I call on Philippe Kitanowski, founder of Project Lux, to deliver his presentation, please.
Hi from my side. Thanks Fernando, thanks Alice for the opportunity to present what Project Lux is doing. So just give me a second to share my screen, and that Fernando pass the presentation role to me, so I can do that. So there we go. And let's go into full mode. So I hope you can see everything that I'm sharing. Basically, I'll just put this aside. Nope.
It works.
Yeah, fair enough. So, but it was in. I have some chats on. So basically, we at Project Lux, we have the vision of provide the most reliable conditioned transport of sensible and vital supplies everywhere in the world. So this is why we founded Project Lux, and what we are trying to do here, or our way forward, is to put a zero-emission transport refrigeration system for purely electric light commercial vehicles. So everything that's less 3.5 tons, and there is a reason for that, why we are focusing on that, and this is what's happening out there. So I mean, you're all aware of this since you're coming from the logistics businesses or tools and vehicles supporting the logistics. Basically, the urban goods mobility demand grows, and now in the pandemic, it's even more intensive, this growth. These are the reasons as why the transport refrigeration part of it is also growing. It comes of the supplies of pharmaceuticals, or if you put on the other side the entire online grocery and everything that needs to be transported either from the outskirts of the cities, in the cities, or within the city. And this is, for example, how, if you've been to Vienna, so how does it look in the morning in between 6 and 10 o'clock. So all I hope that the noise, it's not bothering you. That's bothering me here. How it works here, that when it comes of temperature controlled goods, so double part vehicles and stuff like that, and also the entire rush hour coming into the city in the morning. But let's go back and explain how the transport refrigeration system works today, so you can understand our thoughts and how we can contribute to decarbonize the freight system within the city. So basically what you have here is a compressor that is coupled today on the diesel engine under the hood, basically, and you have this more or less as your AC at home, one system that is outside of the cargo space and one system that is inside of the cargo space, conditioning the transported goods. And you can imagine that, you know, you have pipings and stuff like that that are filled with really high GWP refrigerants, meaning that I don't know, global warming potential. I hope that everybody knows what's that. And basically these refrigerants that are used, unfortunately, they have GWP higher than 1040 CO2 equivalent. So meaning that 1 gram out of this refrigerant in the atmosphere represents 1,500 or even more than 2,500. So this is a huge amount, and the impact of that is immense. So do we need to decarbonize the temperature controlled freight transport? From our point, yes, we need, and we have to do that immediately. And this is why. So if you have a look on the small vehicles, so really on the light commercial vehicles, not on the big trailers, there it's even worse. You have a per vehicle with the R134A. So this is the refrigerant that is being used today in 80% of the plus degrees transported goods. Basically, you have almost a 2,000 400 kilos per vehicle of direct and indirect greenhouse effect. What does it mean? So the direct is just the leakage of the system. They have between 17 and 20% leakage due to the technical solution that you've seen before, mounted straight on the diesel engine mechanically. So and they're not electrically driven systems today out there in the market. And we have the indirect greenhouse effect, meaning the efficiency of the system and door openings and everything that nobody talks about it, and today it's not even measured. So nobody speaks about it, but we've done assessments on several, so on trucks, LCVs, and on the semi-trailers and semi-trailers, and this is immense. So, but if you move to electric, let's talk back again about the light commercial vehicles. You move back to the, you switch to electric system that is electrically driven, that is hermetic, and that is using a natural refrigerant as a working fluid, let's put it that way, for the conditioning of the goods. You have a factor 1 to 10 of per vehicle of reducing potential. In absolute numbers, you can say, okay, the transport refrigeration vehicles, vehicles for transport refrigeration are not that, that they have an impact, but it's not that big because they're the ratio between transported refrigerated systems and the normal light commercial vehicles for not temperature controlled goods is 1 to, I don't know, 200 maybe, or 2%, 3%. But if you take the indirect emissions and the direct emissions in total that these systems are generating, it comes up to 20% of the generated impact. So if you take a look on the fleets, so we have 500,000 fleets out there in Europe. These are numbers coming from ACEA, so and Eurostat. And if you have a look on the growth potential of this vehicle, not growth potential, but how the market is answering the demands of the people of the urbanization, going to 5%, and this is a conservative because all the studies are telling us that this grows with 12 until somewhere between 12 and 20%. But in this study that we've done and we are using for our business cases, it's with 5%. And you'll have an impact calculated just using that until 2030, that these vehicles using, so the diesel vehicles using the state-of-the-art refrigerant will have more or less a cumulative effect of 1 megaton CO2 out there in Europe. And if you switch just to a CO2 electric vehicle with some mixed energy mix that is somewhere 120 gram per kilowatt hour, so CO2 equivalent for Europe, you will have, you can reduce that by 1 million basically, or no, sorry, yeah, by 1 million, which is from our point of view, a huge opportunity and really doable. And having said that, so I just want to cite that the Cristiano Figueres that said, so basically either we'll move to a low carbon world because the natural forces of the policy will guide us. And this is why we see the movement out there on the European level really positive, but I hope that all these changes in the regulation that are coming from DG Move, DG Energy, DG Growth, and so on, will do the right step and finally ban those bad chemicals that are being used there, because they're alternative natural solutions with a really low GVP solution. And this is one of that we are using. It's propane for cooling. This is basically was the first refrigerant, so fluid that was used as a refrigerant back in time. So it's working. And there are technical solutions that are feasible to use this natural refrigerant there from the volumetric efficiency, meaning that I can have even better efficiency in the current system on the market and build everything smaller and lighter. And this is what we've done at Product Box. So we've succeeded to reduce the 50% only for the unit of the weight. So it has a zero plant maintenance, the unit, meaning that you can use it as a simple refrigerator as you are using it in your households. We have 20% more, so we are 20% more efficient. And as I said before, coupled to the electric vehicle, we have a zero emission in operation and a low noise. So it's more or less we are ticking all the boxes that are important here. Why this part load efficiency and the weight is important? Because all the electric vehicles, so what we've learned on the market out there is that the light commercial vehicle have constraint, let's put it that way, on the payload. So basically weight is almost everything, because 50% on the market of the light commercial vehicles are overloaded and they're paying at least in Austria, huge fines for that. How we cooperate, how we work. Basically, what we do is we analyze the fleet, we analyze the tours that are performed by the potential customers. We do assessment on that by GPS systems and stuff like that. So we have already installed simulation tools for that, how to do that. Then we do evaluation at concept on a field test base, and then comes in, so to speak, in business terms, so tender and purchase, implementations, and the entire fleet conversion. So basically, we do analyze everything from tours, energy demands, what kind of goods, how the stops are, how the drivers perform, and afterwards we make a joint decision with the end customers or the users of this vehicle. Why is this important? Because this is extremely important, what we've learned as well, since 90% of the number of the companies in Europe have employees, or the operators and owners of the vehicles have less than 10 employees in their company. So basically they don't have neither time or the skills to understand what's happening out there, and they need this help and transparency on how to do that and how to transform their fleets. Basically what we offer to them are also not just in the purchasing process and transforming process, but also we are helping them during the process itself. And we have our digital services monitoring the assets. So basically we are monitoring the battery of the vehicle and our own asset, the cooling unit, the refrigeration unit, in order to couple the asset management and operations. So basically they receive on daily basis information how the asset is performing, and this information can be injected in their operational systems, meaning planning of tours, assigning the right asset to the right driver, assigning the right driver to the right tour, and so on and so on. And we are doing this by digital services in terms of digital twins and some algorithms that we've developed. Last but not least, what we are offering to them as well is that we are monitoring the asset rest value, so how the system performs and so on, because we've heard before also on the post presentation that basically they want to resell the asset. So the asset rest value is a really important information that needs to be done continuously. So because if I destroy my insulation, thermal insulation of the vehicle, this vehicle cannot be used for this purpose, for this function. So it has to be adjusted or the function adapted. And yeah, so we are doing that by our digital twins. We are offering our one-stop shop opportunity. Basically, as I showed you before, for a rollout, we are assessing everything. We are helping the customers to select the right vehicle for their job to be done. Then we have our partners that are doing the conversions of the vehicle jointly with us. And as I said, basically the digital service and the financing are also part of the game in order to be able to maximize the value out of the asset. This is our research and technology partners, just for information that, as Phil said before, we cannot do this alone. So we need cooperations, we need jointly to address all these issues in order to be successful out there on the market. And this is my final slide. So where do we want to move, or how we do the world in the logistics of temperature controlled logistics, that basically we are willing to participate and contribute to the energy self-efficient logistic hubs that are including zero emission vehicles. Thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, does anybody any questions for Philippe? Okay, in that case, I'd like to thank our speakers today, from Paolo, Alicia, Phil, and Philippe for their excellent presentations, and thanks very much for the effort and the work that you put into those presentations. I'd like to just to close out and ask everybody to call to join forces in this venture with ALICE. It's exciting times for us. We know the requirements in terms of saving the planet. I think, what is it, science-based targets is talking about 1.5 degree by 2030. 2030. So it's a challenging time, and particularly for us based in the logistics industry, it's particularly challenging because our fleets are so heavily based on fossil fuels. We will be sending you out a feed, just to give us some sort of feedback to help us improve these type of presentations. So we particularly welcome if you could fill that in. And again, thank you. And just to maybe Fernando, you just might like to say thanks to everybody as well on behalf of ALICE.
Yes, thanking all the speakers for the great presentations and the work you do in ALICE and the different paths in order to achieve and contribute to the decarbonization roadmap, and all the attendees here today. I hope you have enjoyed the session as much as I have done, and as John said, if you agree with this lemma of it's better to go together and collaborate on this, ALICE, I think it's a good place for all of you to collaborate and create these fabulous networks and links and projects. And that's all on my side. John, also thank you for your great, very Irish just-in-time organization and keeping the schedule. Thank you for that as well.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. And looking forward to seeing you again sometime. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Cheers.